Winter nights at the gas station were long and desolate. The cold air bit through layers of clothing, and the surrounding landscape was a blanket of snow. My name is Alex, and I've been working the night shift here for a few months. Lately, something peculiar had been happening. An old, twisted wood seemed to be growing far in front of the station. It was subtle at first. One night, I noticed a small cluster of dark, gnarled trees in the distance. They hadn't been there before, but I dismissed it as a trick of the light. The snow played strange games with shadows. As the nights passed, the wood seemed to grow closer. Each evening, the trees appeared a little nearer, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. It was as if the forest was creeping towards the station. The presence of the growing wood filled me with unease. I mentioned it to a few regular customers, but they laughed it off, attributing it to my overactive imagination or the isolation of the night shift. One particularly cold night, curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a flashlight and ventured out into the snow. The air was still, and the only sound was the crunch of my boots. As I approached the edge of the wood, I could feel the temperature drop even further. The trees were unlike any I'd seen before. Their bark was black and rough, almost charred, and strange symbols were carved into their trunks. The atmosphere was oppressive, and I felt an overwhelming urge to leave. As I turned to head back to the station, I heard a faint whispering. It seemed to come from the trees themselves. The whispers were unintelligible, but filled with a sense of urgency and warning. The next night, an elderly regular named Sam noticed my distracted demeanor. When I told him about the wood, his face turned pale. "You shouldn't go near those trees," he warned. "They're not natural." Sam shared an old legend about the area. Long ago, this land was cursed by a group of settlers who dabbled in dark rituals. They summoned something that should have remained buried. The wood grows where the ground is tainted. The wood continued to grow, inching closer each night. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. I felt trapped, as if the forest was closing in, cutting me off from the rest of the world. One night, a delivery truck driver went missing. He had parked in front of the station, near the edge of the wood. When I went out to check, there was no sign of him, only his truck, abandoned and covered in frost. I reported the disappearance to the local sheriff. He listened carefully, but seemed skeptical. "We'll look into it," he said, though his tone suggested he didn't expect to find much. One stormy night, a stranger arrived at the station. He was tall, with a weathered face, and seemed to know more than he let on. "The wood is awake," he said cryptically. "It's looking for something or someone." The stranger offered to help. He claimed to be a descendant of the original settlers and knew how to stop the wood. "We need to perform a binding ritual," he explained. "It's the only way to contain it." Together, we gathered the necessary items for the ritual: candles, herbs, and an ancient book filled with arcane symbols. The stranger instructed me on what to do, emphasizing the importance of precision and timing. At midnight, we began the ritual at the edge of the wood. The air was thick with tension, and the whispers from the trees reached a crescendo. The stranger chanted in a language I didn't understand, and I followed his lead. As the ritual progressed, the wood seemed to react violently. The ground shook, and the trees swayed despite the lack of wind. Shadows danced around us, and for a moment, I feared we had failed. With a final, powerful chant, the stranger completed the ritual. A blinding light erupted from the center of the wood, and the whispers ceased abruptly. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, leaving a profound silence. The wood stopped growing and began to recede. The trees, once dark and menacing, now appeared lifeless and ordinary. The stranger nodded solemnly. "It's done," he said. "For now, life at the gas station slowly returned to normal. The wood was no longer a threat, but I knew the danger wasn't gone for good. I shared the story with others, warning them to respect the land and its secrets. Sometimes, I would say, things are better left undisturbed.